The NFL draft is quickly, very quickly approaching. We're so close to it, and I'm going to hit you guys right now with my last 7-round mock draft. I did one at the very end of the Super Bowl, the day after the Super Bowl, and I'm coming back now. I'm finalizing my 7-round mock here as players have declared and undeclared. Guys have moved up. The combine has happened. Personal workouts have gone through as well. Teams have moved up and down the draft board. And I think that we've really locked in at least what the top 100 on a lot of people's personal boards will look like. We'll see what sort of mine looks like as well here. And what I would do for every single team. Every single team. I went through a draft simulator. Holy crap. I went pick 1 all the way down to pick 2, whatever. How many picks there are this year? 270, 260, something like that. I know the New York Jets had the last 2 picks apparently. So there is that. The other thing that there is the Minnesota Vikings, who have, of course, acquired a second first-round pick from the Houston Texans, all in the name of trading up to number 5, 4, 3, 2 in this draft. I think that the first 3 picks are sort of locked in there. We will kick off this video with the picks with the Arizona Cardinals, who you'll see why I didn't choose them to trade out of number 4. I think it's pretty obvious, but hey, spoiler alerts for people who may, not know the obvious solution at number 4 for the Arizona Cardinals. But it was the LA Chargers, who I think are they're the perfect candidates for it. They've really unloaded a lot of their offense. They lost their 3 best weapons overnight and didn't replace them at all. They got Gus Edwards, which sure. So I got them trading out with the Vikings. They're going to get 11 and 23. I don't know what other picks would get mixed in there. I think trading 11 and 23, and then maybe the Chargers kick, Minnesota a 3rd-round pick next year to sort of even out, trading up the 6 spots. But it is for a quarterback, so the price is going to be higher than what the draft value chart says it will be. So there is that. Other than that, I didn't do trades. I think we do 7-round mocks, or even more than just a 1st-round mock. Doing trades, it makes everything so convoluted and really throws off any chance of any type of realism that could occur. So I did my best here, all 32 teams. I'm going to put the team's chapters there for you guys to peruse through, but please hit the like and comment on this video for what I did with your team and any controversial picks that you see that I may have made. That was greatly appreciated. I'll help out with the algorithms. You know what else helps out with the algorithms? Speaking properly. But I clearly failed at that, but hopefully I didn't fail with your team. Check out the video, check out the content. Here it comes. Arizona Cardinals. We'll start off with them. All right, so let's start here with the Arizona Cardinals. And the first pick is very straightforward. I don't see them being the team that trades out. Like I talked about at the beginning, it looks like the Chargers are going to be that team that's going to move out. Just because Marvin Harrison Jr., he's so good, and they don't have any receivers on this team. That's why later I have them going with Brendan Rice as well in the 3rd round. Just because they need weapons out there. They need guys. And I think you got Marvin Harrison Jr. comes in as your number 1 right away. Then you got Michael Wilson, Brendan Rice. They can sort of work out a decent wide receiver group there. Trey McBride is, of course, going to be there as well. A lot of focus on the defensive side of the ball here with some of those middle picks. It's Chop Robinson and Enos Rakestra. I think those are interchangeable picks. I think Chop Robinson's a little bit more at risk of going before Rakestra just because the Carolina Panthers are right there at 33. I could see Arizona being a team that moves up into the 1st round for a 3rd time, kind of like what we saw with the Jets previously, just to make sure they maybe get a guy like Rakestra, or if there's somebody else that they like. Be interested to see what their board looks like, because picking at 27 and 35 in particular, they got so many needs that it's I don't know. To me, they're a real wild card come day 2 of the draft. I got them going Michael Hall as well there, just filling out that defensive line that's just not very good. Patrick Paul comes in tackle. You got Jonah Williams, who they just signed. You got Paris Johnson. But Jonah Williams, man, he hasn't been that good. Maybe you can play him at guard at some point. I don't know. Maybe even Paris Johnson plays one more year at guard. They need to put together the best 5 for the offensive line. Then I got Malik Mustafa going there at 4. Olofashio. Jesus, tongue twister there. Layden Robinson, who I had high hopes for 2 years ago, just really hasn't worked out. Looks like he's going to be that day 3 pick coming up. Stealing a late round running back, just getting a playmaker in there. They do have a crowded running back room that's, I would say, underrated. But I think that there will be, just sort of grabbing weapons and hoping to find playmakers. Same concept there with Trey Knox at 226. Now we got the Atlanta Falcons, and it's Rome Odunze at 8. You got Kirk Cousins. You got to fill out that weaponry on the offensive side of the football. They got Rondale Moore in the trade with Arizona. But so you got Drake London, you got Rondale Moore, and then you got Rome Odunze. You want to give Kirk Cousins the best weapons that he can possibly get. You had Kyle Pitts into there. You want that offense to be high-powered. And then you want to work on the defense. I think you can really do a great job grabbing those guys because the strengths of this draft really suits Atlanta, maybe going for that on day 3 like I've done here with Chris Braswell, Leonard Taylor, and Chris Abrams-Drain. Filling out 3 levels of that defense right there. Tyke Smith there at 109. Michael Pratt, probably the last of the potential one day maybe a starter quarterbacks that it seems that there is in this draft. Out of the it's a very quarterback heavy draft this year, but I think he could be a good backup to Kirk Cousins. Miles Cole, just another depth piece for that pass rush. Dylan McMahon, you add him to the offensive line there. I think they're short guard right now on their roster, so he could fill that out. But the real test is right there in those first 3 rounds. Those are 3 guys who could theoretically be starters the first week of the season. You would hope at least that was the case for the top 2 picks, given how weak those position groups are coming in. Now we got the Carolina Panthers, and I got them going with Darius Robinson there at 33. Get an edge rusher, and they don't really have one. Then I got Zach Frazier. Austin Corbett right now is listed as the center from the looks of it. Bradley Bozeman, I guess, is he there still? I don't know. But getting Zach Frazier, I think him falling to 39, you got to grab him and help out that offensive line, even though you did add Robert Hunt. You added Damian Lewis. You want to keep maybe, you can dump Austin Corbett's contract then perhaps and have a true center there now. Devontae Walker, when you got Deontay Johnson, called it. It didn't make wide receiver that big of a need, and I think you can grab. I think getting Tez Walker there at 65 is amazing for them. He comes in, he's wide receiver 3, eventually moving into wide receiver 2 once Adam Thielen is done. He's had a great year last year. Kalen Carson, who had some day 1, day 2 buzz, maybe falls a little bit here, filling out that cornerback group. They did trade Dante Jackson away for Deontay Johnson. Ben Stenot, could be a real sleeper there at the tight end position. Javon Solomon, another edge guy to help try to strengthen that room out. And then Kamal Hayden, another corner to, again, strengthen up the defense. That frankly, people want to say was good last year, and Panther fans have been riding it. You weren't. You were terrible. You were literally the worst team in the NFL. So you need help, particularly with the pass defense aspect of things. Hopefully, because you're going to be scoring points now on offense with the new group that you have with Deonte Banks here with Tez Walker. So, and the newer offensive line as well. So hopefully you're scoring more points, which means you're going to need help with the pass defense. Not a lot of picks here for the Chicago Bears, but we made the most of them. Caleb Williams, of course, at number 1. That's locked in. I got Byron Murphy going off the board at number 9. And then Braylon Trice going at 75. The reason why I went with Byron Murphy, I feel like the front 4 is going to be the position group that gets addressed at 9 for the Bears, especially if Rome Odunze is already off the board. I can't see them. I still would probably think that they would, in that case, trade out for somebody coming up to get Rome Odunze. But the defensive tackle group, I think, is weaker than the edge group in this draft class. I think you can get, like I did here, Braylon Trice, who can come in and be a great number 2 to Montez Sweat. And I got Bo Limmer there as an interior offensive line. He's going to really, I would say, compete with maybe Nate Davis to play that guard position. Seems to be the one weakness that this offensive line has now that Coleman Shelton was brought in. the Dallas Cowboys, I'm going with J.C. Latham, who can play right tackle. He can play one of the guard spots. I think he's coming in. The point is getting somebody who can come in and play as a starter day one. Jonathan Brooks is the immediate starter in this running back group. We got Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who's going to play that starting linebacker spot. So they're getting 3 starters, 3 really important position groups for them coming into the season. Hunter Nerzad fills out some offensive line depth. Sam Hartman, a lot of rumors about Dak Prescott. So maybe you get a bit of a project quarterback there late in this draft and see what happens. Try to develop him a little bit as the number 3. DeAndre Prince, cornerback Ole Miss, Jaquan Jackson, wide receiver Tulane, just sort of filling out the roster there at the end of those late day 3 picks. Now we got the Detroit Lions on the board, and Ladd McConkey is going to be my pick here at 29. He comes in, he really completes that wide receiver group for the Detroit Lions. I think he's going to complement the guys they have really well. TJ Tampa, they traded for Carlton Davis. I still think cornerback might be a bit of a need for them, just to help fill it out and get, along with Caleb Bullock there, the safety, fill out this group in the secondary, which is really the weakness of the defense at this point, even though they added Carlton Davis. You see T'Vondre Sweat. He would have been a potential day 1 for sure, second round pick at worst, I would think, before his little DWI issue, which is going to scare a lot of teams off. And I think a team like Detroit, maybe they feel they have to trade up. Maybe 30 spots or 40 spots or so. But because their roster is so good, why not just take a chance on the guy and really just grab a guy to put on that front 4 of the defense? Brain McGregor, just sort of a dart shot, and then some depth offensive linemen there towards the end of their draft. Lots of picks here for the Green Bay Packers, and we're going to start with Cooper DeJean. I think that's a home run pick for them. Edger and Cooper linebacker. Their run defense wasn't very great. That's why I also got them grabbing Tyler Davis there as well at 91. I think they really need to solidify right up the middle there. They've done a good job getting guys on the edges. I think up the middle seems to be the core concern for them. They got Cooper Beebe, who their offensive line is sneaky good. Green Bay, everyone's like, oh, they cut David Bakhtiari. They lost John Runyon. They had Sean Ryan there. Maybe you get Cooper Beebe. He competes with Sean Ryan for that last position on the offensive line, which I would think would be the right guard position. But, man, this offensive line is sneaky, sneaky good. Dadrion Taylor Demerson, I think could be that the guy that no one's really talking about getting into that day 2 range. Josh Newton, another depth piece for the secondary. Brennan Jackson, a depth piece for their edge group. Julian Pearl, tackle depth. Devin Leary, figure a dart throw there for a young backup quarterback. Isaiah Williams, some wide receiver depth, special teams depth there. And Tatum Bethune, dart throw there at a linebacker position of need to try to fill out. Maybe you get a diamond in the rough out of him. To really help out with that one weakness that this team seems to have at the moment. The Rams picking quite a bit, including in the first round for the first time in a while. It's going to be Jared Verse, edge rusher. This was a pick they were willing to trade to the Carolina Panthers for Brian Burns not that long ago. They also get Javon Bullard and Kyrie Jackson, fill out that secondary. Spencer Rattler at 99. Apparently he's wowed people in the interview process, and I think that a team like LA that's sort of like a fringe, doesn't really need a quarterback early, but if one falls to them in this situation, I could see them being like, we'll get Rattler and he can sort of sit and see if maybe we get a Jordan Love situation here where he can be a starter 2 years down the line, perhaps, test out. It's a 3rd round pick. If it doesn't work out, it's really no harm, no foul. Then, some defensive depth with Curtis Jacobs, Logan Lee, Trajan Jeffcoat, great name. Audric Estime will come in, be a backup to Kyron Williams. Marcus Rosemy, Jack Saint, another great name from Georgia. some offensive line depth as well there with Grable and Taylor. Here's the Minnesota Vikings trading up, of course, to number 5 to get J.J. McCarthy, like we discussed at the top. Then I got him grabbing Johnny Wilson, the wide receiver out of Florida State, putting him out there with Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, giving J.J. McCarthy every chance he needs to win. They've done a great job building a decent offensive line as well. Got him still adding some depth there with Brandon Coleman. Ray Davis comes in as a depth running back. They only got Aaron Jones for the 1 year, so you might want to maybe work out some type of running back room there as well. And then some defensive help. Jarvis Brownlee Jr., Nelson Caesar. We got MJ Devonshire, Fabian Levette, just working at the front level and the back end there. So it's the New Orleans Saints next. I'm going with Olu Fashanu, the tackle out of Penn State. I would plug him in at left tackle right out the gate there. Try to figure out what's going on with Trevor Penning. Maybe a move to right tackle would work out. Keon Coleman, man, his contested catch rate is not great, and that's what you're bringing him in for, but he's a good complement to what they have, so I could see them working this out, especially with a quarterback like Derek Carr. I think he'd really love a target of this type. Tanner Bartolini, some interior offensive line depth. Marquise Irving, some running back depth. A.J. Barner falls there, so he can be a tight end. You can maybe find some work in certain situations throughout the year, and then just filling out some defensive depth at every defensive position there. Linebacker, edge, interior, and in the secondary, just rounding out some of those defensive positional groups. And here's the New York Giants, and they go Malik Neighbors at number 6. He comes in, he's automatically the number 1 receiver on the team. Pair him up with Jalen Hyde and Wan'Dale Robinson. Tyler Nubin, he's going to come in. That safety group is very weak with Xavier McKinney gone now. I think he can come in, fill in at that role. They got the Tennessee defensive coordinator now, so maybe this is the Kevin Byard position that was once there. Trey Benson, I know they got Devin Singletary, but you bring in Trey Benson and him and Devin Singletary, that 1-2 punch. Almost like what they did in Buffalo, Devin Singletary and James Cook. Renardo Green, cornerback. They need some cornerback work as well. They're not very strong at that positional group right now. Joe Milton, the big strong arm quarterback, showed that off. I think Brian Dable would love to bring him in as a number 3 quarterback as it would stand right now behind Drew Lock and Daniel Jones. And then Nathaniel Watson, just some linebacker help, some depth, some special teams perhaps right there. The Philadelphia Eagles, Nate Wiggins, they're going to go corner at 22. They're just so old at that position. Xavier Worthy falls to them at 50. I think just the straight line speed will really help and be a good complement with, the size comparisons to, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, 3 very different wide receivers now you have in that group. Peyton Wilson, linebacker. I know they don't draft linebackers. Well, they drafted Nakobe Dean in the 3rd round, so why not take Peyton Wilson here in the 2nd round? You need a true number 1 linebacker. Zach Zinter comes in, and that's a guy who can maybe compete for the starting guard spot. Maybe. If anything, he'll be a good backup interior offensive lineman throughout the year that you can develop the way the Eagles have done so well developing offensive linemen over the years. Johnny Dixon, another corner to help them out there. Jaheim Bell, a sneaky tight end that can mix in there. Caden Wallace, a tackle depth there. And Tyrone Tracy, just a depth running back, maybe be a special teams contributor for them. So the 49ers kind of, because trading wasn't really a thing, they kind of sat there for me. And Jackson Powers Johnson was right there, and I just couldn't believe it. I was like, well, if this is where he's going. Then they grabbed Mason Smith there, the interior defensive lineman. They did lose Eric Armstead to the Jacksonville Jaguars. DJ James comes in, adding some corner depth. Jalix Hunt, another guy with a great name, comes in. He'll play, part of that edge rotation opposite of Nick Bosa, trying to find a true number 2. Matt Goncalves will be a depth offensive tackle to start. James Williams, we gave him depth to the safety group. Dalen Hunter, depth to the tight end room. Isaiah Davis, they always draft a running back. Bub Means, they always seem to draft a wide receiver late as well. And then Steel Chambers coming in, he'll be somebody who will have a chance to make the team just because Dre Greenlaw did tear his Achilles in the Super Bowl. So the chances of him, I'd say, 8-month injury, what is that? February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. He definitely won't be ready for the beginning of the year. They got Devondre Campbell, who's sort of going to play spot duty in his place, but you're going to need depth still. And so Steel Chambers could have a real opportunity to be a 7th-round steal. You know how those 7th-round steals work out for the San Francisco 49ers. Seattle Seahawks. Dallas Turner falls to 16, sort of like the Jackson Powers Johnson pick you just saw for the 49ers. Without the trades, this is just how the board kind of fell. So, maybe they got to move up a little bit in order to do this. Maybe Chicago takes Dallas Turner at 9 instead. It's going to be really interesting to see how that, particularly the defensive ends and the interior defensive linemen, how that all plays out come draft day. They got Christian Haynes, interior offensive line. Cedric Gray, a linebacker. Christian Jones, tackle. Sneaky good pick, in my opinion, there. Jordan Travis comes in. He'll be quarterback 3 for now to see what happens with Geno Smith and Sam Howell. Tip Ryman, great name, tight end depth, and Carlton Johnson, some defensive back depth there as well. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it's Liatu Latu falling there to 26. They would love to pick him up, snag him up, and he'll be maybe an edge 1 right away, at least part of a really healthy young rotation they got there with a little bit of veterans sprinkled in. Roman Wilson, wide receiver out of Michigan. Get another weapon out there for Baker Mayfield. See if you can really make this happen there. Mason McCormick's a depth interior offensive lineman. He's going to compete for that left guard spot. Andrew Phillips, corner. There's your Carlton Davis replacement. You think, you hope, maybe. Braylon Allen falls to 125. The running backs are going to be another position group, sort of like the edge group, where are they going to fall? Where are these guys going to end up? Braylon Allen going into a situation here where, they got Rachaad White, but does Rachaad White really have that position locked down? I mean, he played some really good games. If you have him in fantasy, he played great, but fantasy doesn't necessarily translate to the real actual game. And, with Rachaad White's contract coming up, maybe Braylon Allen is somebody they can stream in, and he can be that steal early day 3 running back who becomes a starter. You throw in some special teams help there, defensive line depth. That's always useful. Here we got the Washington Commanders, and it's Drake May at number 2. I was tempted to go J.J. McCarthy. If you see the My Guys mock draft, I did go J.J. McCarthy at 2 because I think that highly of him. Then they get Kool-Aid McKinstry at 36. A good little steal there for a pretty weak positional group. Marshawn Nealand comes in to play edge as well. They lost their starting 2 edge guys to trades at the deadline last year. Kingsley Suamataia comes in. That's your left tackle. They don't really have one. They got Brain Daniels. They got Cornelius Lucas. Kingsley could easily come in and be the number 1 guy there. So that could be an interesting day where Drake May and Kingsley Suamataia being your starters day 1. Cade Stover, I think this guy can come in and leapfrog Zach Ertz and the other guys they have and be a week 1 starter as well. Theoretically, I'm looking at the first 5 picks they have here, and I think these are easy day 1 starters at all 5 of those positions, and I think that's an instant improvement for the Washington Commanders. Jamari Thrash, even at 100, come and be wide receiver 3. Jalen Ford could be a sneaky guy who can come in and be a starter. Satuoa Lumia, some depth there. Damari Richardson, some more depth at those positional groups. The Baltimore Ravens, and Graham Barton falls to them, and there's your starting left guard. Right there. There you go. Opposite Ben Cleveland. They got Max Melton, cornerback. He's going to come in and get some serious playing time, I think, as well. They really need to get younger at that group, and not necessarily only younger, but also increase the talent level for some of the guys that they've drafted previously on day 2 and early day 3 that haven't really worked out. I really like Malik Washington coming in. I think he could be a sneaky steal of a pick. Not like he'd go for 1,000 yards or anything, but I think he could be somebody who can be a real dangerous contributor to this offense. Bo Braid, the safety. They don't really have safeties on the roster right now. At least not that many, so he can come in, fill out the depth there as well. Elijah Jones, another cornerback to add into that group. Cedric Johnson, some edge depth. Garrett Greenfield, some offensive line depth. Harris, some defensive line depth. And then Cody Schrader there, just, a quick flyer to throw out there, be some part of the running back room there. Maybe learn a little something from. Who is that guy that they brought in again at running back? The guy, he's like really good. Yeah, that guy. The Buffalo Bills have fallen apart, guys. They are a mess of an organization. I got them getting Xavier Legette. The way the wide receiver sort of worked out, that seems to be the best option for them because they do have Curtis Samuel. They do have Khalil Shakir. So they need a bigger bodied wide receiver, and those guys sort of went off the board early. I can see them trading back, to be honest, and still being able to get Xavier Legette, maybe picking up a third-round pick because they don't have one. But they grabbed Cole Bishop at 60. They need to get younger at that safety group as well, get guys who have functioning, nervous systems. Gabe Hall, interior defensive lineman, some line depth there. Luke McCaffrey, another wide receiver. Get some wide receiver depth in there, man. They need weapons. Marshawn Lloyd, another guy, come into that backfield. Help out, again, with the offense. Get some players out there. Shao Smith-Wade, some cornerback depth. They got a sneaky good cornerback room even without Tre'Davious White. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that group if I was Buffalo Bill fans. Tyrese Knight, linebacker, that's another position group that I wouldn't be overly concerned about with them either. Grayson Murphy is your depth piece there. Matt Lee, some depth on the offensive line along with Frank Crum as well. It's the Cincinnati Bengals, and we get Talisi Fuaga going at 18. They got Trent Brown, I know that, but he's always injured, and Fuaga can start his career at guard, sort of like what we saw with Tyler Smith in Dallas. Malachi Corley, I think, is going to be a top 50 pick, and the Cincinnati Bengals grabbing him, you're basically picking Deebo Samuel, like that type of archetype of player. So he really fits in well with what they got with Jamar Chase, even with T. Higgins, who you don't know what his future looks like. He might be a draft day trade, so like what we saw with A.J. Brown, still up in the air with that. Mekhi Wingo, some defensive line depth. Jalen Wright, Joe Mixon's gone. I know they got Chase Brown. I know they signed Zach Moss. But, you want to stay there. To me, it's clear they're going with like a committee running back type of a deal and just riding the hot hand. So why not add a guy like Jalen Wright to that group and see, and just use the best player. And I think if the 97th overall pick in the draft becomes your number 2 or number 3 running back in his rookie year, I don't think you're all that worried about it. It's all in the best interest of getting the best players out there for your offense. Same thing here with Christian Mahogany. He's somebody who can come in, be a depth piece on the interior offensive line. And then when Trent Brown inevitably gets injured, Talisi Fuaga can kick out. Mahogany might be able to get some guard work, depending on how well he plays early on in training camp, preseason, all that. Jerrion Jones, some corner depth. Eric Watts, edge depth. Proctor, safety depth. Devin Culp could be a sneaky player on that offense if he ends up in the right situation, and this Bengals team could be the right situation. Jordan McGee, linebacker, just special teams potential there. Cleveland Browns are up, and they have one of the best rosters that I've ever seen. I'm doing the deep dive series right now. I'm working out player grades, and I was looking at what's a position of need for them. What would they do in this draft based upon, the fact they seem to free agency, they've sort of done their thing. They've gotten their receiver in Jerry Jeudy. What could they do? What possibly could they do? And I'm just looking, I guess Junior Colson, the linebacker, would be a pick they would make. And then at 85, I'm like, why not get another wide receiver? Why not? Getting Jerry Jeudy and Amari Cooper is very redundant. So that leads me to believe that Amari Cooper is not long for this world in Cleveland anymore. And they're sort of going to plug Jerry Jeudy into his spot. So maybe you get Javon Baker, and he's more of a long-term guy there. Jordan Jefferson, some interior defensive line help. They don't really need defensive line help, but they could use some depth. Rasheen Ali, running back depth. What's happening with Nick Chubb? Maybe you can work something out there, but you got Jerome Ford, who played pretty well in replacement for him. So maybe you're just, it's pick 206. So, I got a third string running back. I got to pick 206. Yay for me. Same thing with Jack Westover, and then same thing with Zion Tupula-Fitui. It's just like, I don't know where to go with the Cleveland Browns. I don't know where to go with them, man. Like, man, they're a good team. They are a good roster. Everything's worked out for them really well. They're looking real good, man. So, like, this is just all, like, depth pieces. Really, at the end of the day, you get some depth on the offense and the weapons group, and then, your front seven. Work on your front seven. Keep your front seven have healthy rotation. There it is. There it is. There. Yeah. And here's the Denver Broncos. Again, no trade, so Bo Nix goes at 12. I think they can trade down maybe with a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, get Bo Nix at 22, and then you'll actually add a second-round pick to their portfolio. I got them getting Jatavian Sanders as well, tight end out of Texas. I think that's a good addition there. Tight end is a rookie quarterback's best friend. Some defensive depth there, Gabriel Murphy and Nahima Pritchett, edge and corner. And then Jermaine Burton, who, character concerns. I got him falling in this draft as well, sort of like Tavondre Sweat, because of those character concerns. But then you look at a team like Denver, they're in a position, I think, to take a flyer on a guy like that who could turn out to be something. And if it doesn't turn out to be anything, it was just the 145th pick in the draft. Who cares, right? Javon Foster, same sort of thing. Some offensive line depth, some potential there. Evan Williams and Jaden Crumity, you're throwing dart throws at some positions there where you can hopefully find some guy who can get a couple of snaps. Evan Williams, in his case, special teams work. Here are the Houston Texans, and they traded out early so Minnesota could get that first-round pick and eventually trade up to number one. Trade up into the top 5 to get their number 1 quarterback. So Houston's going to add some defensive depth there in the first 2 picks. Ruka Horohoro and Mike Sainristil, the slot corner. They got Desmond King there. Desmond King's a little bit old, getting a little bit older. So it'd be good to have Sainristil in there to maybe get under the learning tree for a year and then maybe fill in year 2, year 3. Ruka Horohoro joining that interior defensive line rotation. You know that D'Amico Ryan's going to love to have a really strong defensive line with a good, strong rotation, get some good athletes in there as well. And Horohoro fits that mold. Dominic Pudi and Roger Rosengarten. Again, you're on the offense side of the ball. You don't really have a lot of needs in terms of the weapons group anymore. You got Joe Mixon. You got Stephon Diggs. You're good. Get some offensive line depth. Maybe find a starter out of that. Oladapo, some back-end help there. Taj Washington, some depth wide receiver. Dylan Johnson, a depth running back. Jalen Harrell, depth edge player. And Jackson Sherman, a linebacker. Between the picks, Oladapo to Jackson Sherman, those last 5 picks, you're really looking for special teams contributors at that point because, man, Houston's got they're another team with a real strong roster. The Indianapolis Colts, and they're immediately going to the passing game on both sides of the ball. Terry and Arnold, Sione Vaki, add them to your secondary. You got day 1 starters, in my opinion, right there. No matter what you feel about Sione Vaki, the safety group with the Colts stinks. Ricky Purcell coming in, he fills in. He's going to be a wide receiver in there for Anthony Richardson. They played together at Florida. Tommy Eichenberg is going to fill in at linebacker. Sneaky pick, could end up being your number 1 linebacker. Jared Wiley could get some significant playing time if he performs well in training camp and rookie camp at the tight end position. Garendo, depth running back. Miles Murphy, not that Miles Murphy, the other Miles Murphy, depth on the interior defensive line. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we got Brian Thomas Jr. going at 17. That's to me, that's your long-term wide receiver 1 based upon how the roster sort of played out here. They got Gabe Davis. To me, he's a career number 2 at best. You got Kamari Lassiter, who's going to come in and be a contributor in the cornerback group. Dwayne Carter, not Dwayne Carter, Lil Wayne, and Austin Booker, add them to that defensive front. Cameron Kitchens didn't perform very well at the combine or his workouts, for that matter. So what once was a fringe first-round pick, early second-round pick, he's falling to 116. But I think Jacksonville would take a flyer on him. They had some offensive line depth there as well with Roos and Nugent. And then a kicker. Yes, kickers. I picked a kicker. I picked a punter also later, but I picked a kicker. Here are the Kansas City Chiefs, and Tyler Guyton comes in. That's your starting left tackle. Plug and play him. Jalen Polk, there's your Rashee Rice replacement. Plug and play him. Theo Johnson, tight end, there's your, preparing for life after Travis Kelce, who I don't know if he's going to be playing all that much longer. I mean, he's won 3 Super Bowls. He's won 3. He's 35. So, is he 35 or is he 34? He's something like that. Some defensive line depth there, some cornerback depth, another receiver to add to the depth there. Kansas City has a shockingly weak wide receiver room and has for a while, but they've still been able to produce well because Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are a great combination, like the new Belichick and Brady. And then Javonte Jean-Baptiste, just, a name guy. I like name guys. Great names. Throw them. Pick them all. Time for the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm going with Quinyon Mitchell there at 13. Small school guy. I think Antonio Pierce would really like this guy. Just the skill set coming from a small school, working him in there. They do need the cornerback help. Michael Penix Jr. falls to 44. They snack him up. There's your quarterback. Adisa Isaac is going to join a 3-man rotation. Tyree Wilson might end up being an interior defensive lineman, but even then, you got a nice, healthy 3-man group there. Justin Ibogabi, easy for me to say, interior defensive lineman. Dominique Hampton, safety. Ryan Florney, wide receiver. And you got Glover and Rame, some offensive line depth there to help you out with that development. The LA Chargers are up next, and this is the 2 picks they're getting in the trade down. They're going to get Troy Fatanu, who's going to play one of those offensive line spots, and then Adonai Mitchell, boom, wide receiver. Chris Jenkins and Blake Corum joining their old college coach, as well as you see Carson Barnhart down there as well. Kalen King getting some cornerback work. Another guy kind of like Kalen Carson, who had some first-round buzz early in the draft cycle, kind of fell out of favor. Trevon Wallace, linebacker. Muhammad Kamara gets into that edge rotation. Delmar Glaze, some offensive line depth. Jalen Carley's safety depth as well. The Miami Dolphins, we got Johnny Newton. There's your Christian Wilkins replacement right there. Right there. He's got to work on his run support, but gaping need there, filling that one up. Kieran Amedigabadeji, whatever. Whatever. You see it. You can pronounce it yourself. Offensive tackle out of Yale. This is your Teron Armstead replacement down the road, guys. I think that's pretty straightforward. Jacob Coing, some wide receiver help. Breven Spanford, that tight end depth there. They don't really use tight ends. They got Jonnu Smith now. We'll see how that works out. Trevor Keegan, some offensive line depth. Maybe you can get a sneaky starter out of that because there is such a weakness there, even though they got Aaron Brewer now. Torrey Taylor, there's the punter. There's the punter that I told you I picked. Now the New England Patriots, Jaden Daniels, boom at 3. Jordan Morgan at 34. There's your quarterback left tackle. Get that quarterback a weapon. Jalen McMillan, add to that group of extremely mid wide receiver 2s and wide receiver 3s and wide receiver 4s. Not quite a wide receiver 1 there. Maybe Jalen McMillan breaks out as one. Brandon Dorlus, sort of like an edge defensive line hybrid type player, can, put his hand in the dirt, stand up a bit. A Gerard Mayo, Belichick tree defensive player right there. Javion Cohen, some interior offensive line depth, much needed. Will Shipley, some running back depth there. They bring in Antonio Gibson. Will Shipley can come in and compete. I think Antonio Gibson might be not good. He wasn't very good for a while now. So might be some damaged goods coming in there. But hey, Will Shipley, good young running back. Patriots love doing that. The Patriot way is still well and good as much as Belichick is gone. Tanner McLaughlin, tight end depth, and Dwight McGlothern, cornerback. Some special teams work in from him and McLaughlin most likely. It's the New York Jets, and we got Brock Bowers going at 10. Aaron Rodgers gets another weapon out there, rounding out that offense after they signed some offensive linemen. I also got them drafting offensive linemen. Blake Fisher there, some depth at tackle. Isaiah Adams, depth on the interior. So working that out there. Jaden Hicks, the safety. I think he could be a day one starter in that safety group, really round that group out. Cornelius Johnson, some wide receiver depth out there. And then Willie Drew and Tarheeb Still, two corners. They're the last two picks of the draft. Special teams help, depth pieces, etc., etc. Now the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we're going to start with our Marius Mims. There's your starting left tackle. Or it's Broderick Jones, the other Georgia tackle you took last year. Figure out who's the best left tackle option, who's the best right tackle option. There you go. Troy Franklin comes in. He's your wide receiver 2, potentially wide receiver 1. George Pickens still has a lot to prove. Cam Hart, cornerback depth there to go with Joey Porter and Dante Jackson. Cedric Van Pran, a sneaky potential starter on the offensive line right away. They're just recreating the Georgia offensive line in Pittsburgh. How about that? Sort of like all the Georgia players going to the Eagles last year and the year before that. Pittsburgh jumping in. Pennsylvania is absorbing the state of Georgia. McKinley Johnson joins defensive line depth there. Eric Alstom, tight end depth. J.D. Bertrand, again, linebacker depth. I think you're getting more special teams contributors with All and Bertrand based upon the strength of those position groups as it stands. But, some good depth pieces nonetheless. And finally, the Tennessee Titans. They draft Joe Alt. There's your starting left tackle of the future. The way this draft worked out, Tennessee lands a big fish. Braden Fisk, who blew people away at the combine in his workouts, he's going to plug in there on the interior defensive line. Jonah Ellis joins as well at the edge position. Maurice Luafu, linebacker. They draft another defensive player, Decameron Richardson. Anthony Gold comes in as a depth wide receiver, special teams player. Ladarius Henderson, some depth there on the offensive line. But I think really after getting Joe Alt, they did sign Calvin Ridley. They signed Tony Pollard. I think shifting the focus to making sure your defense is really strong, make life on Will Levis a little bit easier, should become a priority. And there you have it. All that work for almost none of it to be right. Let's be honest. That was a lot of work for basically no reason. I own that. But the fact that you're still here, the fact that you're even here watching this part of the video by now, after all I just put you through, how I just wasted your time completely, I'd like you to at least hit the thumbs up on this video so I can waste as many people's time as possible with something like a 7-round mock, which makes no sense for anyone to do because it's impossible to get right. It's impossible to get a first 1-round mock. Thanks for coming. I'll see you guys with the next video next time. It's going to be the draft day reactions and all that kind of good stuff and my final first round mock. And then we're off to the deep dive series. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.